And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast. Rise up, rise up, rise up, rise up. Who is able to make war with him?
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Midnight Ride. My name is David Carrico, and it's my great honor to welcome you once again into the Puritan Barn for the Midnight Ride. Tonight, it's a truly classic midnight ride, Cali-Fornia, the island of Tartaria. I guarantee you this is going to be more fun than a big game of whack-a-mole. So get ready. It's Midnight Ride Unfiltered, and the ride starts now, because we are now
live. What's up, guys? It's so good to be here another Saturday night in the Puritan Barn doing this live show, the Midnight Ride, which is, I mean, man, this one's going to be really cool. We're actually simulcasting right now on Rumble and here on YouTube, and also you can see this on our podcast and stuff like that right now. So we're going to test it out, see how it works, simulcasting both places. We're excited. Let me know where you guys are from. I really want to hear where you guys are from. You guys always surprise us by all of these different places all over the world. And let us know what time it is when you're listening. We really want to hear it. So other than that, how are you doing, David?
Well, I'm doing fine, except for my computer giving up the ghost here.
Yeah.
We're going to be working off one computer tonight, but we are very adaptable. You know, we roll with it here. When you do live broadcasting, you got to do that. So it's going to be all good. This is going to be a very exciting broadcast. We're really looking forward to it. We're going to be pushing the envelope, as we often do here on the Midnight Ride. So this is going to really be a neat show. I think our Midnight Ride listeners are going to enjoy that.
For sure, I think so as well. And to start out, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors for tonight's show, Cascadia Cutlery. If you're into knives, whether it be custom-made knives or manufactured knives such as Benchmade, which have lifetime warranties, Cascadia Cutlery is your plug for all of those knives, survival gear, all kinds of different stuff. So check them out. Also, Joshua Watts Leather Company. In Joshua Watts Leather Company, you can make anything custom leather. A lot of different things he actually makes, and he does a fantastic job. He's been our sponsor for, I think, like 2 years now, and he's done so many jobs for a lot of you guys. Just amazing stuff. Some of the covers that he makes for books and for Bibles are just, I mean, like something you would see in an ancient museum. I mean, just amazing stuff, and so we're super thankful. And our biggest sponsor is NYSTV.org. So we're going to check out this commercial here for our documentary. We got several documentaries coming up. Me and David have recorded 2 new Book of Enoch video commentaries. We're going to record them every week. There's 2 new ones that are going to pop up here in the next couple of days that are just awesome. So make sure you guys check that out. You can use the coupon code RIDER to get your first month free.
I really like this last one. Of course, I like them all, but this last one I think was just kind of special. Some good stuff.
If this is true, then our country is in trouble.
We would have these trips, these special trips.
But he said my daddy takes the bodies to the grocery store and he grinds them up and puts it in the hamburger. And nobody ever knows it.
How can kids 6, 8, 10 years old be describing rituals that come from a book like the Book of the Dead?
It's hard to get your mind around people being capable of this kind of evil.
All right, guys, thank you so much. We are back, and we are doing this broadcast called Cali-Fornia, the island of Tartaria, and this is going to be an awesome show. David, we are back with this show. Is there anything you want to say before we get started?
I think we're ready for business.
All right, and everybody's telling me to make sure you get your get your mouth on the mic there. I'm gonna keep bugging you. Mouth on the mic, because I'm gonna keep bugging you because they bug me, and I know they bug you too. So I'm gonna keep bugging you with it. But we're gonna do this. If you're ready to get started, I'm ready to get started. I got the PowerPoint ready.
All right. Now, for those of you that have never heard any of our other Tartaria broadcasts, this is a couple of maps of Grand Tartaria. And up until the 17th century, all maps basically showed the area that on this first map on the left, it is blue. And it's the huge landmass that goes all the way up into Europe, all the way across Russia, in the north, Siberia, takes in China, down to even to Korea and the area of Mongolia, and this was called Grand Tartaria. Now, it's amazing, since this huge country existed and has such a rich history, that it's just basically been erased from modern memory. And John and I have been doing a lot of research into it. The more we research into it, the more fascinating it becomes.
That's for sure. I think that, my first experience with even learning about Tartaria, it was somebody was telling me about it, and I kind of just passed over the idea of it being anything, because I'm like, I would have heard of this in my years of education, right? There would have been some tell of this place, and of course, there's certain aspects of it that maybe had been heard of, but after they told me about it, I just got to thinking about it a little bit. We stayed at this Airbnb, and it had this globe, and on the globe was this map right here. It had Tartaria real big across there, and that got me really wondering. That's why we started the shows in Tartaria, kind of started getting to them. And here's the thing: if they can hide something as big as Tartaria from history, what else are they hiding? What else are they falsifying? We know history is a set of a narrative that was the common narrative possessed by the winners of the wars, the winners of society. That's their narrative. This is a history that we get, and studying this made me realize really heavily, David, and the rest of you, that we can't just look at history like we used to and say, this is what happened. There's so many different aspects of it that have been twisted in order to create a deception that deceives the entire world, and I think this is definitely part of it right here.
It is, and the first, and I think you were probably the first person to mention Tartaria to me, and I kind of had a knee-jerk reaction to it, kind of like the first person that ever told me about flat Earth. It's just like, can't be anything there. I'd have surely have known. They would have surely told me about this in school, but they didn't, and they should have. But, ladies and gentlemen, tonight, another very special event. Tonight is the long-awaited return of Truth or Porky to the Midnight Ride. Yes, indeed. And here we go. Truth and Porky's back.
It's time for another game of Truth or Porky.
And I had the volume off there, so I'll read the question one more time there, David.
Okay, this is the question. There are over 800 maps of California that show it as an island. Over 250 of them are from the 17th and 18th centuries, and that is true. Now, this is one of the amazing truths that when you find this out, a lot of people, they just say that ancient people were just stupid. You know, that's the basic storyline we're fed from our schools, that, you know, the Egyptians, the Babylonians, they did all that, but they didn't even know about the wheel or this kind of nonsense. And it just is not true. And I do believe, and we're not going to go in tonight, of the theory of when California joined to the coast. There are some very interesting ideas about that, but here are just some of the maps that John has pulled up for us here tonight, of maps that do show California as an island, and this was just amazing to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of maps. So these are some of the most popular ones, and probably not the most prominent, but one, you know, some of them by Great Britain, some by Mexico, and just every map. I mean, and if you look at California and the New Mexico, or the Arizona area and the whole little basin there, you can see a darker spot where this water, it looks like there has been water. And I know Joshua Watts, one of our the sponsors, he was telling me that they have this thing called the 1,000-year flood there in California that basically covers that whole valley through there. It's really interesting too, because when you look at the idea of this gold rush that kind of came through this area around a certain time before this, because it looked like this in almost every map up to that point, and then you have this gold rush that happens because the water recedes, and you have gold. People were picking up gold nuggets in this valley area, which is, you know, where the California gold rush happened. So it's really crazy, and I've never heard that part of it before either. You know, that's not something that, you know, you were taught, but when you look at all of these maps, it's pretty obvious. You know, there's really no refuting that. When you have that many maps telling the same story, you can't really refute that. So
yeah, and California could have been an island not that long ago, even back into the 1700s. There's a tremendous amount of evidence to that effect.
Yeah, for sure. And this is, I've got this next slide up here, David.
Yeah, this is a book called The One World Tartarians by James W. Lee. And the cover of this book is the map from the 1771 Encyclopedia Britannica that shows Grand Tartaria there. Just another little amazing thing from the past that you wouldn't have thought. But on page 42, he has something very interesting about the island of California. Queen Khalifa ruled the island of California with griffins, which she fed the flesh of men to keep Spanish invaders away. She supposedly commanded a fleet of ships with which she ruled and maintained peace in the surrounding lands and islands, including Baja and Hawaii. She reportedly kept an aerial defense force of griffins and other fabulous animals which were native to California, trained to defend the land against invaders. She was even said to feed her griffins male flesh to repel male Spanish invaders, aka conquistadors. And another thing, probably very few Californians even realize, is that California is named after a goddess who, according to the legends, that has a lot of basis in fact, as you're going to see, ruled over this island with flesh-eating griffins. Now, for those of you that are familiar with the tremendously popular Game of Thrones series, on the Game of Thrones was Khaleesi, the mother of dragons. And we're not recommending people watch this. We're just drawing this comparison. Now, this is a clip from the Game of Thrones show where there it was Khaleesi, the mother of dragons. And the comparisons there between Game of Thrones at this point and also in others, there's a lot of other really interesting connections with the Tartaria legends. But here's a little clip of Khaleesi. And there she goes, Khaleesi on her dragon. And I think there's an obvious basis of this and a similarity to Kali, who was the goddess of California who ruled with the flesh-eating griffins. And that's what this young lady would do. Somebody crossed her, she would feed them to the dragons.
Yeah, and it's reminiscent. We did a show, I think it was about Nimrod, possibly Nimrod. I can't remember the name of it, but we were talking about the egg, right? The eggs, the egg and the dream that I believe it was Nebuchadnezzar had about the egg that cracked. And in Game of Thrones, you have this Khaleesi that has these dragon eggs, and these dragons are born from these eggs, and she is the mother of these dragons. And it reminds me of the picture where you see the egg-laying goddess, right? You have the egg-laying goddess that lays eggs. In the scripture, it talks about the cockatrice eggs will come from the serpent. I can't remember exactly how that's phrased, but this is an interesting concept here. For sure, Khalifa, it really has a lot of tie-ins, and later on we'll talk about a lot of the tie-ins with that and Diana and the goddess worship. It's pretty interesting.
Now, this slide that John has here, this is the goddess Khalifa in cave art. Now, this is very, very old when you're going back to cave paintings. And the tradition of the goddess Khalifa, and she was always pictured as black. She was a black lady. And this is also interesting when we look at Scripture, and this is a possibility. We can't say it for a certainty, but when we think about the antiquity of this and all of these connections, in Genesis chapter 10 and verse 8, and Cush begat Nimrod, and he began to be a mighty one in the earth. And Cush was the father of the Ethiopians, and he was black. And in the book Two Babylons by Alexander Hislop, he pictures Nimrod as a black man. Now, this could even be possibly one of the very daughters of Nimrod that is ruling this island way, way back. So there's just some tremendous bunny trails here that are just deeply fascinating when we begin to research the history of California as an island, as Cali-Fornia.
And a lot of the history, I know you'll probably talk about this, but in the book that you mentioned earlier, they talked about the idea of the slave trade being a lot less of the reason that there are black people in the United States already. In fact, they said, I think it was like 80% of them were already here, and as what we would classify Native Americans in certain parts of the country.
Yeah, and this is what we're told in school, that the black people that are in America today basically were all here because of all the slaves brought over by the Spaniards and the other Europeans. But if you look at the statistics of the slaves brought over, there certainly were slaves brought over, and there were a lot of them, and it was a terrible thing. But there weren't enough slaves brought over to account for all of the African American people we have. And if you study in South America, the Olmec civilization shows, and the Olmecs in South America, they're older than the Mayas, the Incas, and the Aztecs, and they were definitely a black race of people. And the fact, and there's so much more we could talk about here, that there were something that blew my mind is that there were early black governors in California. Now, this is something I never knew before, but also there's a lot of evidence that there were black people that were indigenous to North and South America, and that they were very sophisticated and were the developers of some very sophisticated civilizations. And this is just another thing in history, that it's just new. This is just not what we've been told.
So true. In this picture here, David, what are we looking at here?
This is from the John Hopkins Hotel in San Francisco, and this is a mural of Queen Khalifa. and she is always is pictured as black, and you see a lot of this if you look for it all over California.
Yeah, and I've got this is this magic circle you have me look at here, David. Did you have something to say?
Yeah, and this is kind of weird, but this is in San Diego, and it's kind of like a kid's playground. It's called the Queen Khalifa Magic Circle. Yeah, take the kiddies down for lunch there. But yeah, this is just kind of a strange thing. It just goes to show that this still has an impact on the culture of California.
I mean, it's the reason the name of California exists.
Yeah.
You know, it comes from
This
is the Lucille Lloyd mural, and the origin and development of the name of the state of California is permanently installed in the John Burton hearing room behind the dais. And this is the picture. It's got this picture of this Queen Khalifa up here on the top, and you have, if you look around the side there, you've got different eras of time, it looks like, you know, going from the settlers, you got conquistadors on the left, settlers and stuff on the right, and you goes all the way down to a white man and a white woman with a pickaxe, which is interesting. And in that last photo that you showed, it shows Khalifa holding a big gold nugget.
Yeah.
Also, you have this this is Queen Khalifa exhibit at the it's assembled by the African American Historical and Cultural Society in San Francisco, and I mean, you have this stuff all over. I mean, I remember when I went to Sacramento, you saw so many different things, and I showed it. I think we showed it in one of the things. You have these giants, literal giants that are mining in different aspects of the society that just all have a mysterious meaning to those that know what know what they're looking for, obviously.
Yeah.
And here you have Beyonce portraying herself as Queen Khalifa. And I want to give a shout out to Adam, our newest addition to NYSTV. He's doing graphics and stuff for us. And he actually sent me this picture the other night of Beyonce. And the interesting thing about Beyonce, her husband is named Jay-Z, right? He's Jay-Z, but he goes by Hova. Jehovah, which stands for Jehovah, you know, and this is they really believe something special about themselves. Obviously, there's no.
He's
doubt
probably
about that.
not Jehovah. He probably isn't. And I'll be honest, my cultural naivete, I would not even have. I would just have thought, now that's a goofy picture of Beyonce. She just has too much money to spend on clothes or something. But it is very interesting that she identifies herself with this, the original Queen of California.
Yep, and Khalifa is in the novel, The Adventures of Asplendian, I believe is how you pronounce it. She's a pagan warrior queen who ruled over a kingdom of black women living on the island of California. So that's interesting as well, especially when you think about the ties of possibly to what we're going to be talking about here in a minute.
Yeah, and this takes us back to another one of the ancient ideas which we're going to explore, that of the Amazons and the Amazon female warriors. Now, there is the... as it says here, she commanded a fleet of ships with which she demanded tribute from surrounding islands, and she kept an aerial defense force of griffins, fabulous animals which were native to California, trained to kill any man they found. And, that is just terribly interesting.
Yeah, and this is kind of an animation that Adam did to kind of give you an idea of the Star Force. I mean, Star Force, this is another huge, thing to get into in this whole subject, another huge rabbit hole. But I can almost imagine her with the griffins coming through and just destroying these Star Force and just pretty amazing stuff. But man, I can't even imagine what our history was at one point. Like, even if it's all allegorical on how it is, which I don't believe it is. I believe that there's a lot of like evidence that has been covered up that we're starting to see uncovered. But the fact that this was all covered up for such a long time and is now being reopened, the investigations being reopened, I think attributes a lot to the internet. First off, being able to find books that you would have never know existed. As you know, they've removed Tartaria from most of the new Britannicas and most of the any new publications. You can still find them in the old ones, but yeah, I mean, this is is definitely something to take heed and listen to and think about. Think about, where is this going? Why is this this kingdom of Tartaria, this Black Queen of California, why is this all being scrubbed? Why is all of these different things being pointed at certain groups of racial people of different races or different colors? Why are certain things kind of moving the way that they're moving, and how does this meld into it? Are the things that are in my head through all of this conversation.
Yeah, and I also, when you're talking about dinosaur fossils, probably the biggest source of dinosaur fossils anywhere on Earth is the La Brea tar pits right out there in California. And they're pulled all kinds of exotic animals out of there.
Wow, I did not know that. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, this is this right here we're looking at here is kind of Khalifa on the left. This is a artist rendition of her with her griffins. You see her griffins there, and her women warriors. And on the right, you have Wonder Woman with her Amazonian women. And this is a lot of people probably have seen the Wonder Woman movie, and I haven't seen the new one. I saw the old one because I wanted to see what they were portraying here. Of course, you have Diana, which is the goddess Diana, which is the kind of overlord of she's this daughter of Zeus and the leader, I guess, of these Amazonian tribes of women. And let me just play this short clip for you guys.
What is this place? Who are you people?
We are the bridge to a greater understanding.
Right.
What is your mission?
Well, here's the thing.
So I can't play very long clips because all they'll do is just flag this video and try to take us down for copyright. You should be able to get at least a few seconds out of there without having any kind of problem with that. But this movie portrays this Diana as this goddess that has these Amazonians, and during World War II, you have this, I think it's World War II, World War I or World War II, you have this guy that stumbles upon their island and ends up taking her with him, which mirrors the story of Diana pretty heavily. If you actually read the story of Diana, what happened to her. And I think, if I remember right, at the end of the movie, Diana ends up pregnant with his baby, which leads me to think about the Madonna, right? The Isis, the goddess with the sun, and all of these different things, which we can get into at some point. But yeah, it's interesting.
And it could be that the original island of the Amazons could have been California, and these legends came from this period when California was an island ruled over by this black lady who became the goddess Kali, possibly even one of the daughters of Nimrod. It's just fascinating to think about. And the Amazons, the Greeks, there were Amazon warriors in ancient Greece back in the 5th, 6th century BC and older. And I have here, I'll try to hold this up. I don't know if you can see it very well. But what we're looking at is a drawing from a Greek vase from the 5th century BC. And what's interesting about this is that the Amazon warrior has the headdress of a Tartarian woman. It's absolutely amazing. So what were the Tartarians doing in Greece in the 5th century BC? This is amazing, and this goes in with other things we've talked about Tartaria being the basis even of the Egyptian and the Sumerian religion, which we'll talk about a little bit, but I'll just try to hold this up. And this is from page 129 of volume 4 of History, Fiction or Science by Anatoly Fomenko. But I'll hold that up here. Can they see that very good, John?
Yeah, they can see it a little bit, yeah.
Okay. So that'll give you an idea that, my goodness, the Greeks were painting on their vases 500 BC Amazon warriors with the headdress of the Tartarian women. So this is very profound, and this gives us some reason to believe that this is all connected, as it certainly all is.
Well, yeah, when you look at seven root race theology, the Atlanteans, and you have even before that, you have the other race of people, because it goes 7 root races, and there's been several races before us, but you have these black the idea of this black race that is the race of the time period, and then it shifts into Aryan, and this is kind of like what this portrays. I feel like in these especially that one picture where you have Khalifa at the top, and then it kind of goes into the Aryan idea, because this is what the seven root race, Great White Brotherhood, they believe that humanity goes through phases. You have that, I think the most recent before this one would be the Atlantean phase that was covered by floods, and then you have the Aryan phase, which we're in right now, and they're obviously wanting to go to the next phase, whatever that may be. But it definitely all ties in, no doubt about it.
And it could even be that during the time of the height of the power of Khalifa on the island of California, that this coincided with the Olmecs, who were before the Mayans in South America. It could well be. It would make a lot of sense according to the theory you put forth.
For sure. I mean, it very well could. I think, once you do this next Truth or Porky here, we'll talk a little bit about this. But, Cali, we're talking about Cali in here. I'll go ahead and read this real quick, and then we'll talk about it. It says, the worship of the Hindu goddess Kali featured the honoring of children with wreaths and flowers. What do we think that is?
How about it, Midnight Ride audience? Is that a truth or a porky?
That's a porky right there. Big porky.
Yeah, that's a big porky. And I'll read from the 15th edition of Encyclopedia Britannica. This is volume 6 and page 137, and this is very interesting. And it says, human sacrifice practiced in Vedic India was continued later by the followers of the goddess Kali, to whom a male child was sacrificed every Friday evening. Now, I find this interesting that coincided with the beginning of the rabbinic Sabbath, which I do not celebrate, and also this also is a definite point of contact. I mean, of course, we have Kali. I mean, there's an obvious. We're talking about a definite connection just in the linguistic names of the goddesses, but also in the practice of human sacrifice. And we've talked on previous Midnight Rides where we have stated that we believe that in the antediluvian world, or the world before the flood of Noah, that there was a one-world civilization that was connected with communication and travel, and just the remains of the things they built show us that they were capable of doing things we cannot duplicate now. But I certainly believe that that was indeed the case before the flood. They weren't just a bunch of dummy-dums.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you look at the Hindu culture, I guess you look at the Vedic text, it was compiled by Aryans. This was an Aryan book. This is the book that many inventors have invented off of. This is one of Hitler's, big inspirations. Obviously, he considered himself an Aryan, and he wanted to be the Aryan of Aryans, right, and have all of the Aryan race come through there. And there's a lot going on there. We could talk about that forever. But one thing that I thought was really interesting, the Sanskrit text. A lot of the Greek words that we get come from the Sanskrit. They come from that language, believe it or not, because Greek is, formerly thought to be one of the older languages. But when you look at Sanskrit, a lot of the words from Latin and Greek actually come from the Sanskrit, come from the Vedic text. And a lot of the gods and goddesses that are worshipped throughout all civilizations lead right back to the Vedic text, the Aryan gods, the Hindu gods, if you will, whatever you want to call them. But that's where it leads back to.
They sure do. And the similarity here with the worship of the Luciferian religion, if we could just give a broad term to encompass all of this Antichrist religion, pre-flood, post-flood, take your pick. But this is Magic and Theory and Practice by Aleister Crowley. And it's interesting that the very same thing that was advocated by the worship of the Hindu goddess Kali is advocated by Mr. Crowley, the 33rd degree Freemason, and even beyond being a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Mason, he held, I think it was the 97th degree in The Rite of Misery in Memphis, a European, very occult rite. But anyway, he says this on page 95. He said, the animal should therefore be killed within the circle or the triangle, as the case may be, so that its energy cannot escape. An animal should be selected whose nature accords with that of the ceremony. A male child of perfect innocence and high intelligence is the most satisfactory and suitable victim. And he goes on to say, for nearly all purposes, human sacrifice is the best. And it's just amazing that this guy walked free and wasn't put somewhere. But there it is. But this is the common blood sacrifice. You know, this is the common denominator of all of this Luciferian religion.
And here's the next question for Truth or Porky. It says, there is evidence that the Tartarian possessed fallen angel knowledge from the antediluvian world, and that they were the founders of the Egyptian and Sumerian civilization. And here we go. That's the truth. What do you got to say about that, David?
All right. Well, that is absolutely true, and this is something that we touched upon on our other midnight rides we've done on Tartaria, but this is from the 15th edition of Encyclopedia Britannica. This is volume 14, and I'm going to read something on page 571 here that gives serious validation to that which we're saying. It says in the 1961 discovery at Tartaria in Transylvania of 3 clay tablets, and we've showed these Tartaria tablets in previous midnight rides, inscribed with pictographs and linear signs, has encouraged the explanation of import from Mesopotamia at about 3000 BC. And this is what was originally thought, that the Tartarians learned about 3000 BC the religion and the knowledge of the Sumerians and the Egyptians. But it goes on to say, but this hypothesis has been invalidated by the mutually reinforcing evidence of stratigraphic typologies and radioactive carbon dating, which locate the early Vinca period in the latter part of the 6th millennium BC. The Tartaria tablets were found in a secure Vinca context and inscribed linear signs on figurines, vases, and spindle whorls of definitely local manufacture appear to confirm that the late 6th and 5th millennia witnessed the development of linear writing. Equivalent inscriptions occur in the East Balkan civilization. So, bottom line, instead of the Tartarians learning from the Egyptian and Sumerian religion, the Tartarian civilization was several thousand years older, and they learned, the Egyptians and the Sumerians learned from them. So we're talking here something, we're definitely talking antediluvian world. So there is every evidence that the Tartarians were possessors of antediluvian knowledge, and this is something that also can be explored in a lot of different directions, but there you got it.
All right, so this is the next question here. It says, the religion of Tartaria was Christian and made up of people that loved the true God and his word. Let's see what it says here. There you go. What do you guys say about that, David?
Well, sad to say that is not true. That is a big porky. And on this is from Britannica, the 15th edition. This is volume 26, and I'm going to read something from page 1032. And it says this. It says an important device, and this is talking about the Tartarian shaman. It says an important device of the shaman is the drum. The outer side of the membrane and the inside as well among some peoples is decorated with drawings. The Turks or Tatars or Alban mark the upper and lower world. The handle is usually in the shape of a cross, but sometimes there is only one handle in a vertical direction. During the ecstasy brought on by the sound of the drum, the spirits move to the shaman, into him, or into the drum, or the soul of the shaman travels to the realm of the spirits on the drum. And what's really interesting, and that is all interesting, but it says shamanic symbolism is impressively presented in dramatic enactment and dance. The performance always takes place in the evening. The theater is a conical tent or yurt. The stage is the space around the fire where the spirits are invoked. The audience consists of the invited members of the clan awaiting the spirits in awe. The shaman is an actor, dancer, and singer, and a whole orchestra. This could even be said to be the origin of entertainment and of actors here in this Tartarian shamanistic practice.
That's right. And here, this is from a book, The Origin and Growth of Healing Art by Bordeaux. And this is just to add to what you're saying. It says, in the Finno-Tartarian magical mythology, we have not only the link which connects the religion of heathen Finland with that of Akkadian Chaldea, but we discover what is of more importance in tracing the origin of magic and medicine of the old civilizations of the world from a primitive and coarse cosmogony. So, cosmogony. So it's interesting, you know, it connects the Chaldeans, it connects a lot of this, and of course the Chaldeans, the scriptures have a lot to say about the Chaldeans and about the Israelites kind of joining themselves together with that whole thing, and really the whole world, I guess you could say. I mean, this is in Babylon, Persia. This was a huge talk about the Chaldeans, right? Chaldeans were something of a major contention with God.
Yeah, they were. And when we think of, we've traced the history of the religion and mystery of Babylon. And I remember when you said this on a midnight ride, it set a lot of people's hair on fire. But you basically said that the religion of Roman Catholicism was based upon the Talmud and the Kabbalah, that it was basically the Hebrew perversion of the Old Testament scriptures that is the basis of Roman Catholicism, and that is so true. And when we think about a connection between Tartaria and the ancient Chaldeans, we can see that there is a pollution that comes from this stream that has come into Judaism and into the Kabbalah and into Gnosticism, that we have something here that is a very old and ancient foundation of that which we see that is very much wrong with the world today. Now, something else here, and this is going to set the stage here for talking about another midnight ride that John did not all that long ago, Los Angeles, the City of Fallen Angels, and there's another big connection here. This is in Encyclopedia. This is the 15th edition of Britannica. This is volume 13 and page 339, and it's talking here about the very area we're talking about, where we had the island of California, the La Brea tar pits, and the religious practice of the Indians that were there in California. Now, it says here, within the Tolaque region of Southern California, as among the Luceno and the Duengo, initiates performed while drinking a hallucinogenic decoction made of the plant Dorata melodies, which put them in a trance and provided them with supernatural knowledge about their future life and role as members of the sacred societies. So this is amazing, and of course this ties in with the documentary that we're working on right now, which I feel like I won't put a date on it, but I feel like we can wrap it up fairly soon about DMT, the Stairway to Heaven, about the very popular use, and this is even being advocated by a Kabbalistic rabbi as the way to bring in the Messiah. So this is something that's been going on for a long time, and this is a part of the heritage of Tartaria, and this is a part of the heritage of the island of Cali-Fornia.
Yeah, there's a lot of heritage in California. That show that we did on LA City of Angels, that just tied into a lot with just the LA aspect of it. But it looks like, this is a lot of this stuff is stuff I wasn't aware of when we did this show. Had I been aware of it, I would have really merged together a lot of different details. And now I did get together a few things from that are relevant to what we're talking about tonight. And if you want me to, David, I'll go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what we're looking at here is called Lake Nemi, and this is in Rome. This is also called Diana's Mirror, and the town's name derives from the Latin Nemes, or Hollywood. Now, the connections between Lake Nemi and Hollywood can't be denied, and are actually pretty interesting when we look at it. Now, Caligula would have been the ruler at the time of Lake Nemi when it was used in a heavy way. So this ship that you see up here at the top was a ship that he had that was just luxurious. It had running water. It had all of these different things in it. There was just beautiful marble floors. It was destroyed sometime during World War II, but they used to have these big parties on this lake, and what they called Diana's Mirror, because Caligula worshipped the goddess Diana big time. He claimed to be Zeus. He claimed to be gods of all different sort. He would come dressed out as different gods. Emperors from the world would congregate in this lake for big parties, and when they would come, they would be given the title of star, given the title of a deity, of a star. Caligula was also responsible for bringing the Egyptian tower here, this monument of Osiris, bringing that to Rome as well. This guy was major into the mysteries, as you can imagine, as a leader of Rome. Also very vicious. There was human sacrifice, and he connected himself with the Isis cult, which David actually talks about a little bit in this video, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But this is what the scripture says about Diana. This is what the scripture says, and this is over in Rome. It says, so that not only this our craft is in danger to be set at naught, but also that the temple of the great goddess Diana should be despised, and her magnificence should be destroyed, whom all Asia and the world worshipeth. And when they heard these sayings, they were full of wrath, and cried out, saying, Great is Diana of Ephesus. So they had this, Diana was worshipped in Asia and all over the world, according to Paul. He was converting so many people that the people that made the idols were very upset with Paul for these things. And this is what David had to say on the show when we talked about it. And I thought it'd just be just as easy for me to pull it back up. I got David next to me, but I don't think you have the book here with you.
I got a lot of books, but not that one.
So we're going to play it real quick, and you said something pretty interesting here.
To understand the cult of Isis, who better to look at than Madame Blavatsky and her book, Isis Unveiled. And the cult of Isis, as John reiterated, is the worship of the goddess under various names through different time periods in the mystery religions. And the people in the mystery religions of old and in the occult today, they believe that this goddess worship will be the unifying element of the final one world religion. And this is what Madame Blavatsky says, and this book was written in the 1800s. On page 95 of Isis Unveiled, she says the Hindu virgin is represented as seating on a lounge and nursing Christina, the hair brushed back, the long veil, and the golden aureole around the virgin's head, as well as around that of the Hindu savior, are striking. No Catholic, well-versed as he might be in the mysterious symbolism of iconology, would hesitate for a moment to worship at that shrine. of the Virgin Mary, the mother of his God. The Endur Shuba, the south entrance of the cave of Elra, may be seen to this day the figure of Indra's wife, Indrani, sitting with her infant sun god, S-O-N God, pointing the finger to heaven with the same gesture as the Italian Madonna and Child in pagan Christian symbolism. The author gives a figure from a medieval woodcut, the like of which we have seen by dozens in old psalters, in which the Virgin Mary with her infant is represented as the Queen of Heaven. And this is the same as Isis, just as John said. And these people understand that. And the concept that John put forward here, and that was showed in the video, of Nemi being a gate. Now, what I believe we're going to see as this information unpacks is that most definitely there was the understanding to the Romans and in the mystery religions that Nemi, right there outside of Rome, was a gate, that Los Angeles was set up for the express purpose of being a gate.
And I remember in that video we talked about this gate, this portal area that they would try to create this, and there was a whole idea behind it. But did you have anything when you heard that? Did anything kind of ring in your head as maybe different than what you had thought about before?
Well, not so much different, but perhaps in the idea, like we're talking tonight, stand with the goddess Kali being another one of these universal goddess figures that relates to the Hindu goddess Kali and to these other goddess motifs. And certainly she is a very prominent one and one of the most powerful of the goddess figures. And it is just another confirmation of that which we're saying, that there's something here that's connected. It's connected throughout time with symbolism and mythology, and always, as we found out, that with mythology, a lot of times it's more history than it is mythology. And also, in this idea of the Nemi here being a gate, one of the things that the Indians in North America did, they did what was called the ghost dance. And in the ghost dance, they were wanting to bring back...
That mic up there right in front of your mouth there. There you go.
Okay, I'm right on here. I don't know.
There you go. Well, it's just down on your chin a little bit if you keep it like right there. Yeah.
But anyway, they wanted, in this ghost dance, they wanted to bring back the ancient spirits of the past and reopen the ancient doors. And this is very much, we can see with the whole motif of the original Shaman being the actor, and this exploding here in this area in Los Angeles. And I mean, there are just so many things here that we see the commonalities of the legends here that very much have a basis in fact, and they show us a picture and even perhaps an even more clear glimpse into the Luciferian religion that ruled before the flood and is taking over the world right now.
For sure. You know, Kali, for instance, I mean, huge in pop culture. Thugs, the idea of thugs and divas, this is where the word derives from. The ones that would follow after Kali, the men that would kill for her and do human sacrifices, were called thuggies. And then you have the divas, which were the female goddesses. And I was going to look up Diana, but the word deity, for instance, Dios, I believe it comes from the word, and I'm going to have to find it to make sure, but from what I remember, that comes from, the female goddess comes from the word divas. And I'm not sure I'm pronouncing the word divas right. Dios, but divas, right? This is where it comes from. And so that connection's huge there. Major connections. And we also have connected the Luciferian cult to a female goddess worship as well. Even though that there's a lot of misinformation on Lucifer and who Lucifer is. Diana was known as the light bearer, right? She was known as this light bearer. And we've talked about it through the scriptures, all these different things about the possibility of Lucifer being female. And in fact, I believe that's exactly who the Freemasons worship, a female deity as Lucifer. And the reason that they've been, kind of touted as Satan worshipers is because it's very similar, obviously, but the Catholic Church wanted to demonize the Freemasons further by saying they worship Satan when in fact they worship Lucifer. Not saying it's much better, but that's kind of where that came from.
It could be Lucifer's Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. She could very well be who Lucy is.
For sure. And so this next one, kind of, I had to put this in. This one will blow your guys' mind if you haven't seen it already. But it talks about the Emmys, and this is how you kind of earn your stripes in Hollywood by winning an Emmy. Once you win an Emmy, you are get your star in Hollywood, and you are considered a star of all time. And so we're going to look at that.
A-lister.
An A-lister, that's right. So we're going to check this out. This is just a clip from the show Los Angeles City of Fallen Angels, which I suggest obviously looking at after you get done with this to kind of tie in some things. There's probably things in there that if I were to go back and listen to the entire thing, I would be really interested.
When I looked up the name Emmy in Latin, that word means adversary, right? And it means adversary, and it also means opponent, and which is interesting to me because when I look, and this will blow your mind. Just wait. Hold on, here we go. Let me switch this slide. This will blow your mind. Okay, so the people that do the Emmys is the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. And if you look at those letters, you see the at the beginning of the letter. You can't make this stuff up. N-A-T-A-S. Do that backwards. It's S-A-T-A-N. This is interesting because once somebody wins this award in Hollywood, they basically become as gods and are worshipped as gods for a long time. They get their star. They get all these interesting things.
Yeah, there you go. So that's interesting, is it not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what Satanists like to do. They like to say words backwards. Crowley was great at that, talking backwards.
Oh, yeah. They talking backwards speak is huge in the occult, major part of that. But it doesn't surprise me at all. This is kind of how it was and how it is in Hollywood. I mean, if somebody's surprised by the idea that Hollywood's got some evil crap going on, or California's got some evil stuff going on, then they haven't been paying attention very long, or haven't been alive very long.
No. You're just not breathing the same air as everybody else.
Yep.
Now, John, if we have time, can you pull up that graphic on the star forts?
Yeah, I can pull up some star forts for us. If you want to talk for a minute, it'll take me a second to pull it up.
Yeah, and another one of and we did a complete midnight ride on the star forts, and this is another amazing part of the Tartaria story. And people believe that people that have studied Tartaria, they believe that these star forts were used for communications. They were also used with frequencies for healing and a lot of things. And I believe that it is very possible that this is the remains of the antediluvian knowledge that they were using. And perhaps the more I study this, that this could have been used not that long ago. And these star forts are absolutely amazing. And they tie in a lot with the technology of sound and of vibration for communication and healing. And John has an amazing graphic here that he's going to show and speak to a little bit on these star forts.
Well, yeah, so I was talking to Adam and Joshua on the call the other day, and we were looking at different files, KMZ files, because you can overlay these files on top of Google Earth, and this one was one that showed all of the star forts. And so you can see, this is just in the United States, you see star forts all over the East Coast. You've got them pretty much in all different parts of the world, and this kind of these kind of structures are very, very common all over the world, and they all link to a certain civilization, a worldwide civilization made the same way. Very interesting. This is Europe. Let me try to twist this around a little bit. This is Europe here. Look at all of these star forts in this area, and if you zoom in on them, of course you can see the star forts as they go. But like, here's one right here that shows this star fort. Let me go back here. There's one right here. I mean, you can go zoom into each one of these and kind of see where they're at. Some of them are more pronounced than others, but you don't have any more than it looks like Europe had tons, and it's guarding towards the north, which a lot of these are guard shacks. And which I find interesting is why why are we guarding so much towards the north up here? What are all these ships? Because in maps nowadays, nobody really operates up here. You know, this is not an area of operation so much as it was back then. And you see maps where this kind of stuff right here is actually green, all kinds of weird creatures and stuff on it. And I just find it super interesting. I mean, this is a really cool file. If you guys want that KMZ file, you should be able to just Google search Starforts KMZ. There's several websites for them, but man, all over the place. These Starforts are interesting to me because, like I said before, they're all built the same. A lot of times you would link those normally. Before we knew about Tartaria, we would link those to the Knights Templar. I would anyway. That would be like the thought behind it. These Knights Templar have built these things. You see Knights Templars markings, which all of this is starting to make more sense now, because you see Knights Templars markings all over the United States that before they should have been here already, right? Before that they ever should have even really been formed or existed. Knights of Malta as well. You have these structures, these symbolism of these things happening. And I find it interesting, you know, looking at this Flamenco book, which is a 7-volume book, by the way. David got this for me, but I had been, you know, looking into some of the authors that were kind of in agreement with Flamenco. And of course, I'm not in agreement with a lot of what he says here, because the ideas that he has based on his evidence of history, which I think his evidence of history is looking pretty solid. What I don't really agree with is what he comes to, the results he comes to based off the information. But it's interesting that you see right around the time of the Dark Ages, you see the Templar, the Malta, they all kind of disappearing, getting kicked out, you know, not being able to be the bankers of the world at that time, at least according to what we see in history, right? The Catholic Church like kind of excommunicates all of them, kills some of them, run them all over the world. Then we have these Dark Ages that kind of come up, and like you said, the Knights of Malta kind of dissolved into Russia. Knights Templar kind of go underground. Most people say they don't exist anymore, and you see their symbols and their star forts all over the world, and yet they're supposed to have been gone. It's just I don't know what to make of it 100%, but all I can say is this: that we're definitely getting somewhere on this. I mean, I don't know how far we'll ever get. It's a rabbit hole that may be deeper than any man can go down, but there's something being hidden here, and I think we can safely say, by looking at the evidence so far, that something is being hidden. Why? Not sure. Is there a worldwide changing the times and seasons was one of the things that the Antichrist wanted to do, right? So why is he changing the times and seasons? Why don't we really know exactly what year we're in? Why is there this push to cover up this whole Tartarian civilization? I mean, your guess is as good as mine. What do you think, David? What is your thoughts on this? What conclusions have you come to?
Well, when you look at this, and if you think of this in biblical terms of a so-called flat earth perspective, why all of this stuff is like guarding the north? Could it be, we did a show on our Book of Enoch series called Journey Beyond the Ice Wall. Could it be that there's something beyond the ice wall? And in the book and in the series Game of Thrones, there were the people, the army of the dead that came from beyond the wall in the north. So here again, we have all of these connections, and there are just so many fascinating ideas that it does indeed look as if there was a serious threat of a supernatural power that these people believed was coming from the north. And another really amazing aspect of this, and this is actually a proven fact, and well, it's theory, and I guess it's theory to a point, there's a lot to back it up, that star forts were used for frequencies, and it's now for communications, energy, and even healing. But it is now a proven fact that music can affect your blood. That even, and they've done these experiments where you play classical music, it'll help your plants to grow better. And you play heavy metal, and it'll kill them, Yeah. But could it be that, and of course the whole story of the antediluvian world. The whole Genesis 6 scenario was the corruption of the human genome, the corruption of the bloodlines. Could it be, and I don't know which way where they were going with it, but could it be that they were possibly wanting to enhance the Nephilim bloodline, or even perhaps they were wanting to purify their blood? Perhaps they were wanting to use this technology to purify themselves from this effect. I don't know. Have you ever thought about that?
I really don't know. Probably, you look at the whole goal of Hitler was to purify the bloodlines. Obviously anything you can do from frequency to help yourself, they probably were all on that. I mean, people were on that today, right? I mean, music-wise, and especially, I'd much rather listen to classical music than heavy metal right now. Even though I used to love heavy metal, the idea of listening to heavy metal right now just get, no, thank you. You need to peaceably use that, and I definitely think the technology of vibrance, of vibrations and sounds and stuff like that was probably more pronounced, better used, even understood then than it is now. The idea that these vibrations form these star forts, that's pretty interesting to me. It's very possible because it does look like that.
It does, and just the way that these ancient buildings are constructed, a lot of these ancient churches and other buildings, just the way they're constructed, they create frequencies. And this is something we could do a whole show on. But the idea that frequencies will produce a design in sand, and a lot, and it's just almost unbelievable, but it's true, that the very frequencies produced by these buildings was the design of the building itself. And it's just amazing.
And the way it bounces off and stuff.
Yeah. It is just something that to us it almost sounds supernatural, and there could be a supernatural element in it. But a lot of this is lost science and probably even fallen angel knowledge that we no longer possess, and perhaps it's good that we don't. But these are just things that, with all of our so-called knowledge, that we just don't have an adequate explanation for it. But the idea that underlying this is an ancient civilization that we can still take a pretty good look at, that could be directly linked to this antediluvian world and a lot of this knowledge. There's a lot of things that would really make us think that might indeed be the case.
Yeah, I think so. I really do. I think, I look at the evidence that I see here so far, and we talked about this before. We talked about on the first Tartaria show, the second Tartaria, third. I think we've done 3 or 4 so far on this, and obviously there's a cover-up, and like I said, I don't know what to say about the cover-up. I think that there's a reason. Maybe they want to impose a war based on what knowledge that we don't know about. If we knew about the knowledge, then maybe we could avoid a certain type of calamity between races, or something, because, when you look at Khalifa, right, the etymology of Khalifa comes from the word caliph, or I'm sorry, caliphate, which is a Muslim move, right, war move, which we know that Ottoman Empire was huge during the time, which might tie in a lot to the Tartaria movement. If the truth is that a lot of the slaves were not brought in over to America, that they were already here, what would by hiding that, what would that do? Does it hide? Because let's face it, and I'm just going to be honest here, the African Americans have been held down and brutalized, slavery, been fed drugs in their communities, education taken away. The men in the family have kind of, left their role as the man of the family, leaving a lot of horrible things. You have hip hop music that is a mind control, is used for mind control. It basically, what it does is feeds into their society and ruins their mind. Makes them think that black women are supposed to shake their butts, men are supposed to go out and sell drugs and kill and murder and act stupid, and a lot of those different things. They've been attacked like big time. Boom, boom, boom. If they knew what we're talking about now, would it be possible that they would understand, like, because when you know your history and you can know who you are, right? Just like me knowing that I am a priest of the Most High God changes the way I see things. Them knowing that at one time they came from very wealthy society of queens and kings and a lot of these different things, what would that do for them to understand that, right? Is that what they're trying to do? Maybe hold down that aspect of their idea because and then bring it, because it seems like it's getting brought back to life now. And of course we know that sometimes when things get brought back to life, you see the tension rising. The scripture talks about a race war that's going to take place, nation versus nation, kingdom versus kingdom. The word nation, nationality versus nationality. How does that play into it? You know, I don't know. I mean, you can see the evidence, but what is the conclusion can you come to based off that? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, it's possible, and definitely, like you said, we see in Scripture, in the doctrine of Christ, that nation, ethnos, will rise against nation. There's going to be this racial conflict as one of the birth pangs, and boy, we can see it every time you watch the news. You can see the racial dynamic that's playing out, and perhaps these people feel that suppressing this information, which there's obviously just stuff been suppressed, and that this will enable them to more effectively ignite this race war and use this as something to ignite the chaos of which they're going to bring order out of chaos, which is the motto of the 32nd degree of the Scottish Rite and also the Illuminati. Yeah. And Fomenko, in his writings on history and chronology, he said that he believed that when and I remember a CIA document that you produced on one of our other Tartaria shows, where the CIA actually, in a document that was released through the Freedom of Information Act, about the actual suppression of information about Tartaria.
Yeah.
And Fomenko, who is Russian, and it's interesting to read Russian history from a Russian, and Fomenko believed that the Romanovs, who came to power, I think the first Romanov was 1633, and they ruled all the way up until 1917 when the Bolshevik Revolution and the communists threw the Romanovs out. But he believed that the Romanovs rewrote Russian history because they were taking over basically from the Tartarians, and to present, and basically his idea is that the Golden Horde was just the name of the Russian army, and that the Romanovs had to portray them as foreign invaders, so to demonize them and take over from all of these Tartarian people that had wealth and influence, they begin to rewrite history and picture these Tartarians as the foreign devils, when indeed they were just the Russian people that had been the inhabitants of Greater Tartaria.
It's interesting, you know, because when you look at that idea, so, you know, the Romanovs moved out of Moscow into St. Michael's? I can't remember where it was. They moved out of Moscow, created a new capital. You see the Great Wall of China, which I have no idea what it's for. But when you were thinking in Khaleesi, you were talking about Game of Thrones before. You have this wall that holds back these hordes of dead, half dead people. The term Khan, for instance, a lot of people believe goes back to the word Cain. And so you have this divisions of these wild men like Cain, that, because I mean, Genghis Khan was crazy, right? He would come, they were hordes, they were definitely, at least according to the history, of course. And so I always say they definitely were. I can't say they definitely were. All I can say is what the history books say about the hordes. But they were people that lived in the woods. They didn't really have a house that had to lay on. They would just poop in the forest, and they were just uncivilized people. You know, they were uncivilized, and they would go through and kill and murder basically everything around their area. And, you know, you think about that and the idea, you know, I can't remember which one of the Khans said it, but he said, you know, your God must be really mad at you for bringing my destruction down upon you. You know,
They were some bad bammer jammers.
They were.
No doubt about it. And speaking of old history books, I have a 1924 Collier's Encyclopedia. And under the entry for Tartars, it says this: originally certain Tungistic tribes in Chinese Tartaria, but extended to the Mongol, Turkish, and other warriors who under Genghis Khan and other chiefs were the terror of the European Middle Ages. Tatar was doubtless changed to Tartar, either consciously or unconsciously, because they were supposed to be like fiends from hell, Greek Tartaros. And they were bad news. Mm-hmm. They were bad news. And the same was written of these Amazon warriors in the Greek writers back 4th, 5th century BC. They would talk about these Amazon warriors that would come in and wipe out entire cities. And they were intimidated by them. They were fierce.
They were, yeah, and there's a lot of stories in Homer, I guess it was Homer's Iliad, I believe, where it talks about the Amazons, and it's so interesting to me that these stories so closely relate to one each other. To me, it's talking about the same story. To me, it's not different groups of people. This is all the same groups talked about differently, and I find it crazy too, because the race of the goddess or god always changes with the civilization, of course. Whether if it's a white civilization, the goddess is white. If it's a black civilization, the goddess is black. So to me, the racial bounds don't mean much. But the idea that these stories are exactly the same, different language, different goddesses, but yet similar in almost every aspect. When you look at Khalifa, and you look at Diana, the similarities are so striking. And they're so striking. And most people say, you know, I actually, this is funny, but I talked to a guy that's a scholar. You know, he is a scholar. I'm not going to say that. He's a scholar, and I told him about Khalifa. He said, oh, that's just a bunch of hooey. He's like, you know, that there's no such thing as that. I'm like, I'm thinking in my head, like, I know that California actually named their state after Khalifa. So obviously it's not just a bunch of hooey, but this guy wasn't even willing to kind of look into the whole aspect of these things. But, you know, the conclusions that we got to come to is this, that we are one step away from them enacting all of this deception on everybody. And we got to come to that conclusion. We know that that's happening now. They have the greatest way to do it. They can interject themselves into our lives much greater way than they ever have been able to. They can manipulate history, not as great as they used to. I don't believe that. I believe because of the internet and because we have access to so many books that we didn't have access to before, they're having a harder time hiding these things. And maybe that's by design. Maybe they don't want to hide them any longer. Maybe they want it all to come to the forefront, but in their own narrative. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I do know that we can't trust what we're seeing. We can't trust the narrative that we're being presented in history. And if we can't trust that narrative, we definitely can't trust the narrative that they're giving to us right now. We can't. There's no way. And you would be a fool to believe the media. You'd be a fool to believe the medical industry. You'd be a fool to believe the governments and all of these things. You'd be a real fool to believe that. And if I'm stepping on your toes, I'm sorry, but you got to hear it from somebody. So it might as well be me, right?
Yeah.
You're a fool if you believe those things. And so we have to think things objectively, think about what their plan might be. Obviously, we know that race war is imminent. We know that that's going to happen. Of course, us that are bound together by the kingdom that's greater than our skin color, it won't affect, but it will affect most of the world. And I don't know what else to say about that other than it's time for people to realize what the scripture says, because I believe the only truth that can be found in ancient past or even in present terms has to be found through the words of God and not through everything else of the world. And if you don't look at that and if you don't read it yourself and stuff, you're going to be deceived and it's going to be too late, and there's nothing anybody can do for you at that point.
Yeah, and something now the New World Order has figured out. They have figured out that the ability to do research through the internet is unbelievable. The average people can research to an amazing extent, and they now have gotten busy corrupting that. And Wikipedia has been caught multiple times messing with stuff. That is why I have, that's why tonight I got a stack of encyclopedias here, because I don't trust Wikipedia anymore. I don't trust, I'm doing everything I can, and I got a few of them, to get hard copy books of the important works that we need for research, because we just can't trust the internet. And like John said, if you're believing the party line, we are being lied to by our educational institutions. We are being lied to by our political and religious institutions. They've been feeding us big porkies big time. And if you're just sitting back believing what they're telling you, you're in a lot of trouble. And it's probably too late for you if you're not going to wake up. I mean, you're going to go down with it. But for those that have ears to hear and eyes to see, the Father, you know, in the scripture it says, in the last days knowledge will be increased. And it's amazing. The more you study, the more you dig, the clearer the picture becomes about what has been and what will be. The book of Ecclesiastes says the thing that has been is that which shall be. And through understanding what has been in history, we will be able to better understand that which is coming and how to live through that victorious for Christ and his kingdom.
I agree with that. And with that being said, David, I think it's a good time to ask you guys to hit the like button on this video. Hit the like button. On the count of 3, we're going to do this. Hit the like button, subscribe, share this out. Also, go check out FOJCradio.com. That's David's website. It's got links to all of their social media, all of their YouTube channels. Go check that out when the show is over with. Also, check out NYSTV Dargs. Check out our sponsors. Check out Cutting Edge, one of our other shows that from NYSTV has his own channel. And with that being said, guys, I just want to say on the count of 3, hit that like or dislike. If you disliked it, tell me why. If you liked it, tell us why as well. Thank you guys so much. 1, 2, 3, boom. Hit that like button. Thank you guys.
Now,
David,
did we do the Pounders Pound or the Rumble Rumble?
We did both. And I didn't call it anything because it was the Humble Rumble versus the Pounders Pound, so we kind of got it right in the middle right there, you know, right there. But David, end us out here.
Well, as I always do, it is with great appreciation to all of our Midnight Ride listeners that we just thank you so much for supporting the Midnight Ride and the work that we do here. Thank you for listening. You are the best. So until next Saturday night, 10 p.m. Central, high five and good night, everybody, from the Midnight Ride.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up, rise up.